A bounce back is coming for Bucky Irving in 2026. That's my call. That's my prediction. This is the Dynasty Market Report, where we look at the value of a specific asset in Dynasty Fantasy Football, be it a pick or a player, and we look at real trades. How is the market moving? We all know that one of the best ways to make our Dynasty team better is by making trades, and we all want to buy low, and we all want to sell high, but what is low? What is high? The best way to find out is by looking at real trades. So, like I said at the start of the video, I think we're going to see a bounce back in Bucky Irving's value this year. If you remember back in 2025, he missed weeks 5 through 12 with ankle and shoulder injuries. At that same time, there was also reporting that maybe there was a personality issue. I'm going to leave that very vague because I don't like to speculate on something like that. But he missed a lot of time throughout the year. There was reports that Bucky Irving should be back this week and then wasn't, should be back next week, should be back after his bye and then wasn't. He missed a ton of the year. And then when he did come back, it was kind of slow. In the final 4 weeks of the season, Bucky Irving in PPR scoring put up 8 points, 7 points, 8 points, and 10 PPR points. That's not very good. Sometimes when we look at the end of season stats for a player, I'll throw him away because the team wasn't really in it, or the team had, like the Chiefs last year. They were out of the playoff push. I'm not really that concerned. And no Patrick Mahomes. I'm not that concerned about anyone's scoring on that offense at the end of the year. That's not the case for the Bucs. The Bucs were in the playoff hunt all the way up through the final week of the season, and Bucky Irving wasn't quite producing. With all that said, I'm still a little bit optimistic about Bucky Irving going into 2026. And I think there's a good shots here to buy in low. So why am I optimistic? Well, the Bucs have a new offensive coordinator coming in. They've moved on from Josh Grizzard after 1 year, and the offense for the Bucs in 2025 slowed down. Something that you'll see with bad offensive coordinators that come in that first year is they start okay. And then as the year goes on, they're not making the right adjustments. The play calling is a little bit more predictable and defenses can stop them. And the team slows down later in the season. And that's what we saw with the Bucs. They started out all right, and as the year went on, whether it was Josh Grizzard as the coordinator not being good enough or just injuries for the team piling up, a lot of players on this offense missed time last year. Tristan Wirfs, Baker Mayfield was banged up, Mike Evans missed time, Godwin missed time. There was a lot of injuries. Bucky Irving obviously missed time. I'm not exactly sure what led to their downfall, but there was a lot of things. And what we're seeing coming in with the new coordinator, Zach Robinson, is a track record of more success than Josh Grizzard. Robinson is coming over from the Falcons. He was let go from his position there as OC in part of their team moving on from their current head coach, Raheem Morris. But he's moving right back into the same spot, from offensive coordinator for the Falcons to coordinator for the Bucs. And over the past 2 years when he was a coordinator there, they were a pretty good offense. In 2024, the Falcons were 6th in yards per game. And in 2025, with Michael Penix kind of struggling and using Kirk Cousins, they were 14th in yards per game. In 2025, though, the Bucs were 21st in yards per game. Now, I think the Bucs have better offensive personnel outside of Bijan Robinson, kind of across the board on offense. I like Baker at quarterback more. I like Drake London for the Falcons, but I like the Bucs receiving options more. I like their offensive line quite a bit. And Bucky Irving is a good enough running back. Obviously, he's not Bijan Robinson. That I think that the Bucs in 2026 can have a pretty good year with Robinson as coordinator. So if we're looking at moves to make involving Bucky Irving, I've got some hypothetical up tiers and down tiers here that we'll start with, and then we'll get into some real trades. So if we're just down tiering from a running back that's higher value right now, Jonathan Taylor seems like one of the obvious ones for me. He's 27 years old going into this year. What we've seen with running backs over the past 10 to 15 years is anytime they slow down past age 27, the value falls out. So the value just kind of goes away in the market. Jonathan Taylor had a great year last year. If he does not repeat that in 2026 at age 27, I expect a lot of his dynasty value to kind of just disappear. And that's not the case with someone like Bucky Irving, who had a down year and has held his value pretty strongly. So if I could take something like Jonathan Taylor and get Bucky Irving and another pick on top, I'd be happy to do that. With a theoretical up tier, I've been looking at, again, older players, Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley, for the same reason. Jacobs and Saquon, if they don't produce in 2026, you're not really going to be able to get much for them. So if I could just move on from those guys and add a little bit on top and get up to Bucky Irving, I would be pretty happy to do that. So those are the hypothetical up tiers and down tiers. We do have a real trade that someone made moving Josh Jacobs for Bucky Irving that I found. I don't know that you're going to get this specific deal, but it does show the value of what I'm talking about. It was Bucky Irving and Tyrod Taylor for Josh Jacobs and Tua in a super flex. We could also get this pretty close to saying Josh Jacobs at a second for Bucky Irving would not be crazy. And I would be looking to do something like that. If we're looking at real deals that have happened for Bucky Irving, how about Bucky Irving for a 27 first and Tyler Algier? Now, I like Tyler Algier, but this isn't really the type of way that I want to be acquiring him this offseason. I do think Algier is a pretty good buy low or stash option in Dynasty, especially going into free agency where he could sign and be a starter somewhere. But I don't want the piece that I'm moving to bring him in to be Bucky Irving. I'd rather just have Bucky. And if I had Algier, I would give up on that upside to just go get Bucky Irving with a 27 first. Here's a deal where someone moved Luther Burden and they got back Bucky Irving and DJ Moore. And that's really low for me. Now we have a video on trades for Luther Burden. We'll put that one up on the screen. I think it's this side. Could be that side. Not sure. But that will be up there on a card for you. And with a player like Luther Burden, I'm typically out on a guy like this. Players like Burden have gained a lot of value without actually having done it. There's definitely potential there. But I don't want to move Bucky Irving to buy potential. And if I could sell potential that hasn't quite hit yet, like Luther Burden for Bucky Irving, I've seen Bucky Irving play well. I know that there's potential in Luther Burden and he could become more valuable, but a lot of the time, if I could just cash out at the high end of the market for a player before they've even done it, I would be looking to do that. And I think that's the case that we're getting with Luther Burden for Bucky Irving and DJ Moore. I'll go a little bit further and say, I don't really even need DJ Moore back on this deal. I would just rather have Bucky Irving. If we're looking for pick value, here's a trade that someone made. And I think this is about the market price. Bucky Irving for a random 27 first and a random 27 third. I'd be fine sending up to a first and a second for Bucky Irving. I think last year his value was very close to 2 firsts. So getting him for a first and a third right now after a down season is a deal I like. If you wanted to move just one pick to get Bucky Irving, the closest thing that I found in value was Bucky Irving for the 106. And depending on how the rookie draft was going in my Dynasty rookie draft and how the NFL draft goes, the highest that I would probably give up is about the 105. So if we got into our Dynasty rookie drafts and in a situation where 3 wide receivers were drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, and then we went Jeremiah Love, Tate, Tyson, Lemon in the rookie draft, and then Mendoza at 5, I could take Bucky Irving over Mendoza at 5, and that would be the absolute highest. But that's really kind of specific to how the draft would go. If I was just giving today the 106 for Bucky Irving, I think that's a fine price. You're not really getting low. You're not really losing value. I think that's about a fine price. Here are some trades where someone was sending Bucky Irving away, and I kind of like the other side. Bucky Irving for Rashee Rice. Now, we'll do a video on Rashee Rice this week, but he's a player that when he's out on the field producing, the production is good. Top 12 wide receiver numbers. It's just every offseason he's arrested or being sued for abusing someone. We can like the player on the field and really not prefer the person off the field. I think I would just be taking the upside of Rice here in a fantasy football mindset or a strictly fantasy football deal. Probably a worse person, but better production for fantasy. The final trade that we'll look at here is Bucky Irving and the 202 and the 310 for Devon Achane. Now, one of the reasons I really like this deal to move on from Bucky Irving is because depending on your league, it can be hard to move a 2nd round pick. It can be hard to move a 3rd round pick and lock in that value. When you make your picks in the 2nd or 3rd round, a lot of the times that value kind of just doesn't ever come back. The players that we're taking there are risky enough that if you draft an Adonai Mitchell in the 2nd round, he was someone that we were drafting a few years ago in the 2nd round. and then he didn't perform as a rookie, you were not able to trade Adonai Mitchell back for a second round pick. And a lot of the times with these second round picks, they just miss. So if I can take them and turn it into a pick or into a player, like Devon Achane, who I could then move in a trade for a running back and a better first round pick, I would be looking to do something like that. Now, if you want to get a gauge of the value of Devon Achane, we do have a video. Now, if you've made it this far, you might like our video on Devon Achane. We'll link that one on the screen here for you. And if you've made it all the way to the end of the video where we're at now, let me know with a like, a comment, a subscribe. It does really help me out. I will be a little bit selfish and say, please, please, please do. Thank you very much. We will see you in the next video.